Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff. I'm here with Erica, and we are presenting our interspeech paper, Can Speaker Augmentation Improve Multi-Speaker End-to-End TTS? And this is joint work with Yusuk and Jenichi from NII. This is the roadmap of this presentation. We will start off with a background on speaker augmentation for multi-speaker TTS. I'll then introduce our approach, and Erica will talk about the experiments, results, and conclusions. Speaker adaptation refers to the problem of adapting a single speaker TTS model for multiple speakers. And the scenario that we are interested in is where test speakers are not present during training. Here is the de facto approach for speaker adaptation nowadays, is to have a separate speaker recognition model which extract the speaker embeddings for the target speakers and input those embeddings into the tachytron 2 model. Typically, these multi-speaker tachytron 2 models are trained on VCTK with around 100 speakers. Past experiments have shown that this modeling approach does not cope well with unseen speakers. The research question of this work is to ask, experimentally, whether having a larger exposure to a more diverse set of speaker can help zero-shot speaker adaptation for tachytron. We propose two approaches to expand the speaker sets during training. The first approach is based on an idea from ASR called focal tract length perturbation, VTLP. The idea is very simple. We speed up and slow down the audio recordings during training. And by doing so, we create additional artificial speakers for training. This has shown to be effective for ASR, but has not experimented for TTS. The second approach is to simply use more data. And in this work, we experimentally explore using ASR data to train a TTS model. But this is tricky as these corpora were not designed for TTS, and they have different channel and recording conditions. In addition, there are many different dialects in these data. So we have to make some modification to the tachytron 2 model when we train with these data. Now I'll talk more about the VTLP approach. We implemented VTLP with the SOX command. We speed up and slow down the audio recordings by 10%. The idea is that when we resample the waveforms, we change the fundamental frequency, speaking rate, the formants, and thus the resulting recording sounds very different. So here's the original recording.
Please call Stella.
Here's the recording that was slowed down for 10%.
Please call Stella.
And here's the recording that is speed up for 10%.
Please call Stella.
So they sound pretty different. And by doing so, we can create artificial speakers during training. Now, the second approach is to use ASR data to train TTS. Here is an illustration of the multi-speaker tachytron 2 model. So there is an encoder network, there's a decoder network, and a postnets. The input, it can be text or it can be phonemes. There's a speaker encoder network that was pre-trained on FoxLab 2. And during training, the speaker recognition model supplies the speaker embedding to the tachytron 2 model. The first modification we made is to supply the channel label as a one-hot vector to the postnets. This tells the network which data sets that it is currently being trained on. The second modification is to supply a dialect embeddings to the encoder network. And this tells the network the dialect information in the current addresses. This dialect encoder network is very similar to the speaker encoder network. Both of them are based on end-to-end speaker recognition model, and they are both trained separately. Here, I'm going to talk about the dialect recognition model. It is trained end-to-end, and there are three components: the encoder network, the pooling method, and the classification laws. In this work, we use this ResNets for the encoder network. We have the learnable dictionary encoding layer for the pooling as the pooling method. And then the recognition model was trained on Angular softmax laws. The dialect recognition model was trained separately on the ATR English dialect corpus, which contains read speech and spontaneous speech of different English speakers with different dialects. So we trained up a set of dialect recognition model, and with those dialect embeddings, we trained up a set of multi-speaker TTS model. But we only selected a 5 tachytron model for listening test. And the selection criterion is based on the cosine similarity between the embeddings of the synthetic speech and that of the target speaker speech. So by this selection criterion, we selected 5 dialect embeddings for the tachytron 2 model with phone input, and another 5 embeddings for the tachytron 2 model with the character input. And here we present the configurations of those dialect embeddings. Although they look very different, all these dialect recognition model can achieve around 97 to 99% accuracy on the ATR English dialect data sets. And for more info, we encourage the reader to refer to our previous ICAST paper. Now Erica is going to talk about the warm start training.
Since our system has many parts, we conduct training in multiple steps. Each step is warm started from the previous step. First, we train a single speaker tachytron model on the Nancy dataset from Blizzard 2011. Next, we use that single speaker model to warm start a multi-speaker tachytron using the combined VCTK and ASR datasets, with speaker embeddings obtained from our speaker encoder network. Next, we add channel labels indicating which corpus each training utterance belongs to. Finally, we add dialect embeddings extracted from one of our dialect encoder networks. We conduct experiments trying both phoneme and character inputs for all models. In addition to training models using the artificially augmented dataset, we train models with ASR and VCTK data together using the previously described multi-step strategy. For models with channel labels, we choose the VCTK channel at synthesis time for best quality. For models with dialect encoder, we try the 5 best dialect models for phone input and for character input. We crowdsourced a listening test asking listeners to rate naturalness and speaker similarity on scales from 1 to 5. Here are some of our experimental results. Systems in green are phoneme input systems. Yellow is character input systems. Systems are compared with their respective baselines, that is, character or phone. Results highlighted in red are significantly better than their respective baseline, and results in blue are significantly worse. We can see that the artificial speaker augmentation did not improve naturalness or speaker similarity, although this method is known to work well in other tasks, such as ASR or speaker identification. We also find an unexpected but interesting tendency. We obtained improvements for naturalness of seen speakers when ASR data, channel label, and dialect embedding are all used. It is surprising that speaker augmentation contributes to naturalness rather than speaker similarity, and for seen speakers rather than unseen ones. We may speculate that this augmentation allows Tacotron to better learn to capture important aspects of speech, but that overfitting to the training set speakers is still taking place. We also found that simply using low-quality data without also modeling channel or dialect worsens results. We need to model channel and dialect factors also if we want to use noisy data effectively. Finally, the use of dialect embeddings does not consistently result in improvements. The type of dialect encoder has an effect on synthesis. We also evaluated dialect similarity of synthetic speech. Listeners were asked to choose the dialect that they heard, with examples presented also for reference. We obtained confusion matrices of dialects for all systems. For example, we found that US and Canadian accents were highly confusable to listeners, even in natural speech. Then we measured Frobenius distance between confusion matrices of synthetic speech and the confusion matrix of natural speech. Here are our dialect results of Frobenius distance. Again, red results are better than baseline, and blue ones are worse. We observed relative improvements over the baseline for unseen speakers in development and test sets. We found that all phoneme-based systems using the low-quality data have smaller Frobenius distances than the baseline for unseen speakers. This means that synthetic speech matches dialect better than before. It also helps some of the character-based systems when channel label and dialect encoder are also used. Here are some audio samples from our experiments. This first one is natural speech.
There are exciting days ahead.
Next, we have our phoneme baseline.
There are exciting days ahead.
Finally, here's one of our phoneme-based systems that was also trained with ASR data, channel label, and dialect embedding.
There are exciting days ahead.
In conclusion, we have investigated artificial speaker augmentation and speaker augmentation using real data from lower quality corpora. We revised the postnet and the encoder of Tacotron to support channel and dialect variations from the low quality data. Use of low quality data with a variety of speakers and dialects is an effective augmentation strategy for training multi-speaker Tacotron. Contrary to our initial expectations, naturalness of seen speakers has been improved. Finally, listeners' ratings of perceived dialects are better matched to natural speech for unseen speakers when we use our dialect embeddings. Thanks very much for listening. We have more audio samples at our website online at the URL, and also our multi-speaker Tacotron code is available on GitHub.